Okay, so today we're going to have a look at what looks to be quite a controversial topic, whether you invert the rear shocks on the back of a Hilux 4Runner or not. So the consensus is that people believe that the performance on road suffers. I've been running inverted shocks for nearly 2 decades on daily drives and on comp trucks, and as we can see here, the performance on road, you don't feel any different. You're on leaf springs to start with, and most of us have got longer leaves or custom leaves in the rear. I mean, I tested this 4Runner out initially with no shocks, and I drove for like 2 weeks without shocks, and then I put the Old Man Emu off the shelf 2-inch lift shocks on in the conventional way, went out, and my wheel travel suffered. I wasn't getting what the spring allowed. So the only real way to do that these days is you can't buy a shock to a certain length anymore. Years ago you could. ProComp used to make a shock to a set valve. I mean, I can get longer shocks eye to eye, but you know, they're for a 60 series or a Patrol, so they're valved a lot differently than what I would want on the back of my Hilux. So where we're at today is we're going to go out in the bush with them inverted and just have a look. I'll put GoPro underneath there while we're in the bush just to see, and I'll compare it to the video I made last where I had the shocks the conventional way, and my wheel travel was significantly compromised compared to the time when we had no shocks. So here we go. So Bullet Truck setup's similar, except I've got a ladder bar, wrap bar on the back. So his bracket sits on top of the diff there. And what we find is any high speed stuff or big bumps, the top of that ladder bar hits that bracket that sits on the cross member to take the top of the shocks. You can see the mark there in the rust. So where I've marked it there in a bit of texture, black texture on that, needs to be V'd out. This doesn't drive on the road much. It'll come off the trailer and do a 40 or 50k stint to get to an event or a stage, but other than that, it doesn't really drive on the road. Now in theory that rig's a bit green to be doing this sort of stuff unlocked without transfer gears, but it's capable. It's capable because we're trying to keep all 4 wheels on the ground. We're unlocked. Now in my opinion, with the inversion, I feel that it's no different on the road, it's no different cornering. Now I don't carry weight in it, so that could be a spot where I'm not visiting to comment on. But so the original shock, here's a stick, the original shock runs from that point to that point. So the shock that I'm running inverted, running that way, only gives me 50 mil of travel, down travel. So this is why people do invert them, so that they can run a standard sort of Hilux shock where the valving suits the vehicle. This diff is going to want to travel that way and that way easier with the shocks already pointing in the direction that they're going. So we got the lengths right. There's also talk that fuel tank cross member isn't strong enough to handle shocks. Now I've been running them for 20 years that way, and basically the spring is doing all the work. This is just a damper. I mean, you can drive your car without shocks. The shocks aren't putting any extra pressure on that cross member. I'd like to see, I mean, we've done competitions fast, slow, rolled over. Never ever have we ever seen any bent fuel tank cross member. So as far as I'm concerned, it's worth doing. The angle's okay. Would have been probably better if it was just maybe 20 mil further towards the center. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because I'm not reaching full extension. And there's no compromise on the road that I can feel. So just like to end the note on saying thanks for watching and keep wheeling.